card is really any card that is a unique shape. So anything that's not your basic rectangle or square. For this example, I'm going to show you this star-shaped card that I made. So first, we're going to insert a star shape. So I'm going to go to Shapes, and there are free ones. I'm using this one because it's fatter and thicker. You could use this one, but the points are kind of skinny, and I wanted to have something a little bit thicker for this card. I am going to make the width for this. Let's see, let's go 4 1/8. I'm going to change the color. Let's do this one yellow. Okay, so you can see that's the same width that I have this card over here. Now we need to create the back of the card because this is the front. So I'm going to right click and go duplicate. So now I have a second star. But I want those tips on the points to touch. So I'm going to take this one and flip it. So now the points are going to touch. Now to make this card, I want those to overlap just a little bit so that there's something for it to fold on. And I am just going to eyeball so that they're overlapping. Then after I've eyeballed that and see that they're overlapping, what I'm going to do is select everything and say align so that they're centered horizontally. That is just making sure that that center line is perfectly aligned. Now, if I was making this exact same card that I did over here in orange, right here I would hit weld. But I want to show you another little trick. If you wanted to add kind of a bigger connector to this, you could select all of this and say offset. The offset is going to add a little shadow or outline around your entire card, and you can see the preview right here of that. And I'm going to select apply. So what I could do is actually, if I got rid of this star completely, then the black piece, which I could change the color to anything. Let's make it a really pale yellow. There. So that would actually be the card shape, and then the star would kind of be an embellishment on top of the card. Okay. So I am going to move this off to the side over here. And I'm going to finish doing this card just how it is so that you can see how this one turned out. I'm going to select everything and say weld. Weld is going to remove that cut line between the two stars and make it so it connects together. So it's joining the two stars. So right here is where I'm going to want my score line. So I'm going to go back to my shapes, insert a score line. I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees. And I could make it shorter, but I don't really need to. I just need the score line to go across that center point. So I'm going to select everything and tell it to align this so it's perfectly centered. And there it is. So now, because this shaped card has a very tiny connector piece, I'm actually going to make a second score line a little bit further down here. And I'm doing that so that I can actually glue the top parts of these tips together. So the bend for where it will open as a card is going to be down here. That's just going to help it so it doesn't tear apart for this little tiny thing. So I'm going to just right click on the score line and duplicate it, and I'll just put it down here, no exact dimension. I'm going to select everything and say align this all centered horizontally. Now the last step is to click the attach button. Attach holds the placement and position of things. So by attaching these score lines to the star, we're telling the Cricut that we want to hold that position. And that's exactly where we want the score lines to be. So I'm going to just go attach. And now I can move the whole group around together. Let's look at the assembly for this first card before we even start to play with that second card I made for the offset. So you can see this one has that very thin tip that I was telling you about. So that's where the fold is. And remember, just slightly below that, I put a second score line that you can see right there. So I want to fold the front of my card back on that line. And then I'm going to put glue in that little space between the score line and the very, very tip. And once I put that glue there and close this card, that triangle type shape at the top is what's going to stay adhered together. So then my card will open easier. I don't have to worry about that little tip kind of tearing off, because it is kind of delicate, which is why we did the second example with the thicker card, which we will do the assembly for after. So then to embellish this, I have a variety of smaller stars. Some are left over from other projects, and I'm just grabbing some of those that have colors that go along with this paper for this star card, and I'm just adding those to the top as kind of embellishment. So you can see they're different sizes, and some have more rounded tips and more pointed tips. Doesn't really matter. It's just to add a little extra something to the top of this card, so it's not just a plain old shaped card. And now if I can get my fingers in here, I can open it. You can see how it opens without tearing that tip. And here's what the finished card looks like. I'm going to turn back this outline back on. And I'm actually going to put a score line in there too. And I'm going to show you a couple different variations on this card when we're all done, so that you can see one of them with this outline, and then some of them with just the star shape. So I put my score line in there, select all of this, and align it so it's perfectly centered, and attach. Another thing you can do with your cards is you can make little frames. So let me zoom out. There we go. So I made this little frame and I put the text happy birthday in there. Because I set it inside the frame, the Cricut is actually going to write the word happy birthday and then cut the star. But then this innermost star will be a fully separate piece, and you'll see that one of my finished projects. So to make those little frames, all I did, using the exact same star, and let's make it like that. I'm going to then duplicate this star and make the second one a little bit smaller. And now I can select both of those and align them so they're centered over each other. And I can use slice. Slice will cut one shape from another. So now what you'll see is I'll have a frame type shape that I could put on top of this card for a little embellishment. And you could keep going and offset that one. Well, actually, if I slide it this way, it's going to be an inset. And I go apply. So it made it smaller. And I can then, I have too many selected. I can do that and slice that one. And now I get all kinds of little stars that I can use to decorate and embellish the fronts of some of these cards. So this is the other card that I had originally done the offset on to make it a fatter, thicker one. And I just want to show you how that comes together. I just folded the card on the score line. Remember, we made those little frame pieces? So now I'm taking some of those frame pieces and adding some glue to the back of those. And I'll start to apply those to the front of my star card. And here's how that card looks when it's finished. And here are all the different variations on the star-shaped card that I did. Before you go, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. I love to hear from you.